Yo.
Let's no longer waste time. Let's podcast.
Hey.
He's John Marsh. I'm John Helfman. And
I have something in my eye. Okay.
You good?
Where are you? You in like a hotel room?
I'm at the beach. Do you miss the hats?
Yeah. Like I was like, I love when we're really going to make our 30 listeners kind of like, where are they? Where is he now? Mine hasn't changed. Mine changed because I just not redid this, but it's been
I'm at the beach and, it's not a huge place, right? So like I have this rig going where I'm actually like on the bed looking this way. I have the microphone's on a cutting board, right? So
okay.
at any, I almost want to just show you this thing, but at any given point, this whole thing could just collapse and fall apart in my lap. Right.
Excellent.
And then maybe we'll just have to edit it. But
there's an element of danger to your podcasting today. I dig it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm playing without a net, John. And I'd
at any given moment, a kid can run in with a shell in their eye. Like what?
And also this sort of flies in the face of the podcast because, it started because you and I would just have all these ridiculous conversations. We'd waste hours of time and we decided, we should probably record this nonsense, right? It's in the name of content.
Someone should hear this. Yeah.
Right. We did it in the name of content. But now, like, I'm doing this as opposed to being down at the beach. So I'm not really wasting time. I'm actually putting in the effort so that our listeners can enjoy an hour of nonsense in an otherwise fucked up world, right?
Because you could be on the beach right now.
Yeah. I'm a slave to our audience.
Guys, he's sacrificing. The fuck are you all doing?
I'm just getting over being sick too.
Oh.
Yeah. Sore throat, stuffy nose. Yeah. No.
Okay.
But it's not COVID.
Good.
And
everyone asks that.
I know. Well,
you could blow your knee out. Did you get tested for COVID? I'm like, fuck my knee up.
Isn't that a side effect? Isn't that a symptom?
You remember your health, like when you went to the health center in college and you went in and you had like a chest cold and they gave you condoms and then asked you if you had chlamydia. And you're like, it's more of a respiratory thing.
Yeah,
it's
I can't breathe.
But I remember seeing this big sign my freshman year and we were getting the tour of college. And this big sign said, chlamydia is not a flower. And I had to lean to this guy, Dave, who I still talk to this day. And I'm like, what's chlamydia? Like, I didn't even know what that was. And I was I know what it isn't. Thanks for the sign. But okay. But yeah, like they were constantly like, well, and now it's COVID. So I'm glad you don't have COVID. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm a little better. What I did learn though, is that when it's not COVID, no one gives a shit.
No one cares.
No one cares. Remember, it used to be like, oh, feel better, man. I'm sorry. You're in bed. Like I was laid up for a day or two and people call me up like, how you doing? And like, I sounded horrible. Like when I talk, I sound like this. Yeah. And people are like, you sound like shit. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I'm sick. They're like, oh no. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not COVID. And they're like, oh, all right. Well, strap them on, young lad. Let's get back to it. And
you think people are a little disappointed? Like, oh,
they think like I'm just lazy. Right. Like there is a sense to that. Like I almost started just lying and telling people I had COVID. That way they'd be like, oh my gosh.
Have you had it?
I'm praying for you. I'm going to bring you food. I'm going to leave food at your door. Like,
did you get it at all?
No, I've never had it.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. I've never knowingly
had it. You don't think you had it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have had it and just been really bored.
Yeah.
And I know it's a serious thing. People died and all that stuff, but there could have been a day where I was like not feeling great. And I was just like lethargic and sort of mad at the wind. And then I could have had COVID. And then the next day, like I'm better. So
I'm fairly certain there have been times where, because so many people have it and they're asymptomatic. And I always ask, like, whenever someone's like, oh yeah, did you hear Fred had COVID? I'm like, no, is he okay? Oh yeah, he doesn't feel a thing. So I'm always just like, well then why'd you bring it up? Yeah, why did he even test?
Why are we talking about it?
What triggered a COVID test? Do people just every 2 weeks just?
Right.
I will say this: we're 2.5 years, I guess, or over. Like it's been a while, right? Yeah. But every morning now, just almost out of habit and ritual, when I go into the bathroom and put on deodorant, I still smell the deodorant to make sure I still have smell. Like that's been my litmus test.
That's your litmus test. COVID. Yeah, like
for
your
over
canary in the
years.
coal mine is like, Okay. Got that.
So like I will literally take the cap off and I'll be like, yeah, it's good, and then put it on.
I will say this and then we can move on to the hat. I've found kind of funny is how with the COVID and people getting sick and then get anything else hysterical. In this world.
You don't even need to finish. It's hysterical.
It got to the point where we look back at our behavior and like, oh, that was extreme. You know what I mean? But when you see someone in two different scenarios, which make me laugh, but yet they could feel comfortable and it's their safety blanket or whatever. If they feel great, we're Americans. It's fine. You can do what you want, to I think a level of whatever. People in their car by themselves with masks on. I find that hilarious. And they're not Uber drivers, there's no one in the back seat, like, I'm just like, why? You just look over and you see someone, they've got the mask on and they're in their car and you're like, and you can pull it down, man.
Yeah.
You can enjoy some time without the mask or someone outside in a big open area, just walking and it's windy with a mask on. And you're kind of like, what? Like,
I'll give you a couple. I'm not disagreeing, but I'll give you a couple. Right. I'll give you a couple of scenarios. Okay. Sometimes I'll still wear a mask, like in a grocery store, or if I know I'm going to be around a crowd. Even today, I'll still wear a mask. Right. Going
on the beach.
Places. Not on the beach. No.
Okay.
What am I, insane?
Right.
No,
yes.
No.
Savage.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. I got 3-digit
You'll
IQ.
see someone on the beach with a mask on. I swear to God, you'll see.
I know.
It.
No, I know. But here's a couple things I would say. Number one, there are times where I leave the grocery store, I walk out to my car, I get in the car, I start driving, I get to a light, I look in the mirror to check the hair, and I'm still wearing my mask because I hadn't even thought about taking it off. So A, you might be seeing that guy. B, it could be a rental car. I know some people are still skittish around being in a rental car, but here's what I would want to believe about people who wear masks.
Okay.
First of all, so many people think that masks keep things out. They do to a small extent, but the reason to wear masks is that dumpster going on in the back. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
There's something that someone's emptying a dumpster here at the beach.
We're getting our heads slammed against a trash can.
I wonder if they're like, I think there's a podcast going on.
Yeah, these guys are recording.
Up and down.
Let's start making some noise.
Let's wake people up. Guys, it's beach time. Bang,
let's go.
So masks don't keep shit out nearly as well as they keep shit in. Right. So I would like to believe that if I ever saw someone walking outside in a mask, maybe they have a cold and maybe they're just being polite and they don't want to get other people sick, or they've got some sort of bug, right?
I get it. Or
didn't you have a bug?
Like, oh my God, I had a stomach thing. Thank you for bringing that up. I texted you and I was like, I think I lost like 10
texted
pounds.
You. I'm like, let's podcast. And you're like, I am not in the mood.
No. I had a stomach bug, not COVID. And this thing, man,
wimp,
was no joke. Like at first I thought it was like, oh, it's just a bug. It's 48, 24-hour thing. And everyone sort of in my life treated it that way. Like, oh, you're fine. Just eat some bland food. Day 3, still problems. It lasted 2 weeks, John. 2 weeks. I didn't
like a full-on stomach virus.
I had, and apparently some people had it worse. I almost went to the hospital. I literally was like, had my finger 9-1. No, that would be embarrassing because I know the guys.
You're one of them. When you
volunteer at the fire department, you'll be the last to call the fire department. Trust me, because I don't want dudes I know walking in my house being like, yeah, pussy. Like, what's
they just start rummaging through your fridge.
Exactly. Making a sandwich. You're fine. Clammy, whatever. But yeah, I finally went to a doc in a box, and he had seen this virus before. And he was basically like, I'm putting you on a liquid diet. I was on a liquid diet for a week.
What's a liquid diet? Soup?
So water, Gatorade Zero, and Pedialyte. Not Pedialyte. Those protein shakes and Shores.
Okay.
It's all I had for a week because he needed, my electrolytes were low. Everything was low. He's like, you'll feel better when you crave a cheeseburger.
No soup?
Nothing. He's like, don't, because he said my stomach needed to recalibrate itself and get the bacteria, whatever the bad thing was, the virus needed to leave. And then the good stuff had to come in and fight the bad stuff. But
what was your trigger? I think you and I are very similar with doctors. Mm-hmm. Doctors to us are always like the last resort.
Oh yeah.
Like, and not because of a fear or this, it's just because 90% of the time I go to the doctor, like, just drink lots of fluids and rest.
Right.
So I'm just eliminating the
stress,
right?
You're just stressed, right?
Yeah. You're just tired, right? And occasionally there's time where they're like, here's some penicillin because there's a thing that needs to die inside your body. But that's the exception. The norm is it's going to run its course, right? So I just let it run its course. I don't know what, I think there's something in my body, and I don't know, I'm 50, right? So I've been through a lot of these things.
Where
it's just like, you know what? This isn't going to run its course. This needs something. This needs a doctor. And I don't know when. It's like 3 days, maybe 2 days, 3. And my wife's always like, did you make a doctor's appointment? I'm like, no. She's like, why not? I'm like, because it's just going to run its course. And then by day 3 or 4, I'm like, it might not be running its course.
I always joke that I was a Civil War doctor. Like, I just can look at something and know when it's broken or infected, or I can give very bad, vague medical advice with confidence. So it sounds like I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But I listen to my body, and I was always under the impression of a week. If this rash is still present in a week, you should probably go get it looked at. If the said thing is still active and getting worse, you should definitely go get it looked at. But the minute something happens, it's like when someone in my circle comes to me and was like, I don't know why I'm this person, probably because I've given out bad medical advice with confidence, is that they're like, is this broken? And their finger like, yes. What should I do? Go to a hospital. Or if it's a toe, just tape it to the one next to it. And you're good.
That works with a finger too, I think.
I had my hand reset, and my hand is so much. That's my normal way of holding my hand. See how my pinky goes?
Because you did a self set on a broken pinky?
No. Well, I waited too long. I waited an entire weekend after I broke my hand. And I was like, I should probably, this is not going really well. So I should probably go to the doctor. And the doctor's like, I have to re-break this. Like, this is all jacked up. And I was like, okay, well, do what you got to do, man. But yeah, I had a stomach virus, and that was no bueno. But I keep saying, but the silver lining is I didn't have it as bad as other people I've heard have had it. And that is this one friend, he did go to the hospital. I think he had it for like 3 weeks.
Well, now you just gave me something else to worry about. A month-long stuff. Although at this point,
you're welcome.
I could drop a little weight. That'd be good. Like, I wonder,
lost weight.
Like, will there ever be a time and a place where people package stomach virus as a weight loss? Like, literally sell stomach virus. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, you're going to feel like shit for about 7 days, but you're going to drop 8 to 10 pounds.
Well, this is how you can do it, folks. If you really want to cleanse and just feel like you have a stomach virus. And the disclaimer for the podcast is that in no way do we recommend this. In no way are we condoning this. But if
people who listen to our advice and act religiously on it are fucked anyway.
I'm just trying to lawyer up right now.
Okay.
If you drink about a gallon of salt water, highly salted water, you're basically going to clean out everything in your body.
I love that you know that. Like, there's like I want to be there at whatever event taught you that.
Right.
Like what did you like? Were you just lying on your back in the ocean and water was just pouring in like you were a drain?
Right. Now I remember, again, it's another useless fact that's floating around in my head that I remember. Like, if you really want to, like, I remember also MMA fighters to lose weight, they would take. The problem is they would take diuretics, but then it would also like drink salt water, but salt water makes you bloat, but at the same time, it fucking cleans you out. So at the beginning of like trying to lose weight, when you're trying to cut weight before your fight, salt water definitely does it. But it's like, it wreaks havoc on your kidneys.
Yeah, it's not recommended.
I don't recommend it at all. But I mean, if you really want to get everything out of your body, salt water.
See, the problem is
where I went. I don't even know. Like, I live with my mom. My mom she doesn't listen to this, but I was raised / trained in a household where wasn't very sympathetic if you were sick. It was something you did wrong. Like, and it was always like, my mom's, I don't know how your mom was, because she was
I'll get to that.
Jewish, kind of like soup. I don't know. That's stereotypical. I have no idea. But my mom was like waspy and just wanted to get to the point. Like, where did you get this? And then like where? It was really important where I got it. Like, I know I walked through a cloud of virus somewhere and I got it. And it was generally always my fault, because I was always either working too hard, traveling too much, or not sleeping enough. Well, and the tone was, well, you had it coming. And you're like, okay, thanks. I'll let you know when I'm better.
My parents were very cliche Jewish, like wear a jacket everywhere. It's 75 degrees out. Yeah, well, it could drop. Just, you should bring a jacket. Big on jackets. I still, to the time, like I'll walk outside.
Big on jackets.
Big on jackets. Real big on jackets. Just, we had jackets like in a closet, like a Pez dispenser, like jacket. Right. We had like a jacket for every 5-degree.
Are they always cold?
What's that?
Are they always cold?
No.
Your parents?
They just need a jacket.
Just
it might
bring
rain.
A jacket.
It might be cold. Jackets. Big on jackets. And like, my wife still makes fun of me, because like, I'll walk outside. I'm like, am I good in shorts and t-shirts? And she'll say, no, Barb. Like, she'll call me by my mom's name, like, you don't need a jacket. And I'm like, okay. But my parents, they're not hypochondriacs, but they're very quick to, are you sure you're okay? Like if I sneeze because a bug flew up my nose, they'll be like, and then I sneeze again randomly in an hour just because of a sneeze. They'll say, you've sneezed twice an hour. Are you sure you're not sick? And I'm like, I'm sure. Like, I know when I'm sick. And they're like, like they do that.
Right.
Like, I know you're sick, but I'm in no mood to debate you on it. And I'm like, no, a bug flew in my nose. Like, unless they were carrying some type of virus, I'm not sick. So they're big on, like, if I have a runny nose, I might not even see them, because I just don't feel like defending my health.
Is that weird?
I have a runny nose all the time. I don't know if it's allergies, or I don't know if it's this, but I have a little, right. Imagine, I don't know if it's allergies. I don't know if it's the air. I don't know if it's the Coke habit, but I have a runny nose. And, I'm the same way, a little bit of a cough, which is the runny nose. Like, it's perpetual, but it's not like I don't feel the need to cough now. Right. I don't cough, more than once an hour, but it exists. There's a little bit of stuffy and a little bit of cough every hour. And like, if you had me under a microscope, like most moms do, that it presents a problem, because I'm just assumed to always be sick.
Right. My mom doesn't. Yeah. There's not a lot of like, I always say we were trained. We weren't raised. My sister and I were just trained.
You kind of are, though.
Yeah. And then
it kind of is a training.
We were trained there. I was brought up in a very caring home. I'll say that to the listeners. I was cared for. That was not abused in any way. I was very fortunate in my upbringing. Yet there was a level of training and not sort of caring, I would say. Like, don't bleed on the carpet was said a lot. like standing holding your head together in the garage while your mom figures out what to do because she doesn't want you bleeding in the house is training rather than being raised. I mean, there's a difference. There's a nuance to, and then it's interesting at our age right now, we're still 13-year-old boys, like just not wanting to tell our moms we're sick because we don't want the other side of that thing that we know. Yeah.
What comes with it.
Now my mom goes, heard you're sick, like from my sister. So now I have to even like watch what I say to my sister, because I told my sister, I was like, oh, I've got the stomach thing. She's like, oh gosh. And then she said it, where'd you get it? And I was like, oh, at the Harris Teeter aisle 7. I know exactly where I got it. And she's like, okay, stop being sarcastic. I'm like, that's my nature. Like, that's who I am. Like, you're asking sort of a
stupid
dumb
questions, get stupid answers.
So, but I was specific. That's where I got it. And then I wanted to follow up to be like, how'd you know? I was like, but that's where, I knew exactly where I got it. But yeah, man, I don't recommend it. But unless you want to lose some weight, and then, but I'm so fucking, it's like, Have you ever drank something like Jägermeister and you can't drink it anymore, tequila or something like that because you got sick?
Yep.
I'm that way with some of the foods I ate right before I got sick.
I used to
very
be that way with
specific
chicken
things.
wings. I got food poisoning and couldn't eat those same wings forever.
But you're fine, obviously, with chicken wings now. But
They're so
you know what
good.
I crave
They're
now,
delicious.
which is weird?
What's
Rice. Rice. I could eat rice with every meal now. I love rice. There, I said it.
I went through a phase where I was living with a good friend of mine right after college, and he's Korean. So we used to always get like his mom would make us like what is it, bulgogi, or there's some like meats, different kinds of meats, and he always had a white rice maker on in the kitchen. There'd always be fresh rice in the kitchen, and but like I would abuse it, right? Like, and not in a way that it was probably meant to be made in a Korean household. Like I would come home, I'd be lazy. I just want to eat. So I would like take a big scoop of the rice, put it in a bowl, then take a big scoop of like butter and then just mix it. And all of a sudden it was like delicious buttered, right? Might as well throw some shrimp
Salt
in there and
pepper.
Call it scampi, you know?
It's good. No, but it's good. You can eat rice for breakfast.
I know. And sometimes I would even I would buy like half of a pulled chicken at like a grocery store, you know, like the little rotisseries, like the thing. And I would
barbecue sauce.
I would just take out a whole bunch of things, put it in a bowl with the rice, and it'd be like chicken and it'd be like chicken noodle soup without the soup. Like, you know, it's basically just rice and chicken.
Not with this diet I'm on, but with this new fitness kick, I seem to really like rice and I seem to enjoy eating it. And then coming out of the sickness, I was like, I craved it all the time. But it was, I'm back.
All right, let me get to this before we pick two.
Okay.
We get to choose. Loosely related, we've got spaghetti, which is kind of like long rice, right? And
but made from flour.
I always just assume all the different carbs and all the different things are.
They're all different.
Blind date.
Ooh.
I mean, we're gonna do blind date, right? So just put.
How about a blind date with spaghetti?
Bonus points if you can tell a story that was a blind date that involves spaghetti. How about that?
I have to think about even.
I don't even know that I've been on a blind date.
I don't
honestly
think I have.
Like, first of all, I don't. All right, I'll tell you what. We'll do spaghetti next time because we pick it.
Because I can then talk about gluten.
Can we even do an hour on spaghetti?
I can talk about gluten and bore the shit out of everyone.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Spaghetti to me is just a means by which to have meat sauce. Like it's an excuse. It's not even, I don't even like the spaghetti. It's just an excuse, the sauce.
I miss spaghetti. I really do.
Do you not eat gluten now?
Mm-mm.
You know, look, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yep.
All right. Next week, spaghetti.
I think gluten's great, by the way. And I think everyone should have it. I just found out after years of suffering with, acid reflux and with just a bloatiness. I was like, oh, that's just being old. And then I had finally someone tell me to like take shit out of my diet, dairy and everything, and then rebuild and see what it is. And I took gluten out and I feel fucking 10 times better.
Isn't it weird that what you put in your body actually affects it?
Right.
Like, yeah, like there's times and like I pay a penance, right? Like when I wake up and I feel like shit, I think back to the terrible, terrible decisions I made the day before from the moment I woke up until the end of the day. And I go, yeah.
But it couldn't have been
like
that.
Shit. Like I deserve this.
You know,
I deserve this.
Right. Yeah. But mine was more a food thing. Anyway, blind date.
Blind date. What, like, first of all, I'm going to be worthless.
Yeah. Because you've been married.
Remember my last date. I mean, that wasn't with my wife and I go on dates, but that's different.
I know you dated before your wife.
But I've been set up with people in the small window between college and meeting my wife. There's probably about a 2.5, almost 3-year window where I was at like an adult-ish, right? Like I had my own place and my own money, a job. And then when I met my wife, it's about a 3-year window.
Was your bed on a bed frame or was it on the floor?
It was on a box spring, which was on the floor.
Got it.
And my dresser were like 4 stacked milk crates.
There you go.
No doors. One of the first gifts my wife actually got me was like matching linens.
Oh, that's a
Because
really nice gift.
because she's like, if I'm going to stay here,
Yeah, if I'm going to be sleeping in this,
it wasn't even a gift for
shithole,
me. It was a gift for her,
right?
packaged with a card to me.
I was going to say a maid,
right? I think I got some towels. Yeah, like it was like, it was basically like, I'm going to give you gifts so that my
experiences
right are much better.
I'm going to help you.
It's and in hindsight, I understand it now. Mm-hmm. I didn't. Women are light years more developed than men, right? So like I understood it now, but back then I was like, I got sheets. I was hoping for bourbon. I got sheets, know, but in hindsight, I'm like, well, of course I got sheets because I'm a fucking mess.
And she was
just trying to help,
right?
Speed up my development. Yeah, shoot. I know, like, so being set up by someone, I guess, is a blind date. Blind dates are just, the idea that you're just going into something blind has always been weird to me, because like, especially if you don't even know what the person looks like.
Well, you want to know what they look like first. And that's very,
because you kind of have to, right? Like you can save a lot of time if there's not a physical, because you need certain elements and they're important. A lot of people are like, don't be so superficial. It's fucking important, a physical attraction.
Right. And then what'd you do before cell phones? So they just draw a picture?
Well, I would ask, they describe like what you go down to like the police station.
I always did what's the celebrity she most resembles?
Right.
And they're like,
Milton Berle. You're like, yeah,
Grace Jones. I'm like, all right, there we go. Tell me more.
Yeah, there were a lot of Ali Sheedys back in the day, right? Or like
Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was like which friend?
Right.
So you need to have physical attraction. You need to have an emotional attraction. You need to have things in common. Like there's lots of boxes you need to check for a successful long-term relationship. The physical attraction part is the easiest to assess. Like that happens.
That happens in nanoseconds.
And you can grow into being a little bit more like if you consider someone on a 1 to 10 scale, right? And my 10 is different than your 10 is different than others 10. Like we're all different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so if you personally deem someone as 7 when you first sit down with them and then have the dinner of your life, right? And everything's great. They don't go from 7 to 10 physically. They go from 7 to like 7.8. Like they're still, you know what I'm saying? Like you can gain points because the whole other package
then
there.
It starts congealing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're funny and they're smart and you see on the stage, you finish each other's sentences,
Right.
But you're not going to gain like 2 points. A 7's not going to become a 9 because of all that.
Right.
It's still in the same way that if you get a 10 and that 10's funny, but you have nothing in common, you're not going to go out with them again, at least not 4 more times. but yeah.
Well, my thing was, I think I was always a disappointment because I was always the super me, because you and I are probably similar where our brains work pretty quickly and that we're quick on our feet. We're always on. We can be funny or we can be thoughtful, or I can talk about salt water. There's like a million different stupid shit in my head that I can, but the super me on a date is almost like false advertising, because once the super me just becomes me, they're looking for what terms and did I just click? What box did I just, this person is not the person that I met a while ago. Physically the same, but probably mentally I didn't get all this. So I've learned with years of therapy is just try to be not super me and just be me, which is hard because then you're like, well, now I'm me trying to be me. And then that's trying. So you can really get in your head. But I think the other thing that's really important is pH, is how someone smells or tastes. Because if
the taste part is probably weird on a first date, right?
Yeah. No? You don't want to be like, it's
lean
hard.
On in here.
It's really hard to describe, but I'm not saying that's first date stuff.
Right.
But it definitely
it's eventual.
Yeah. Because you can be with, like, if you're using your skin, you can be with a 10, but if their pH is weird and they smell in a way, and I hope you and the viewers understand what I mean by, like,
I
it's
know.
not like I'm smelling people's armpits, but there is a thing, and I recognize it, that it's very important that your pH matches with their pH. And that's a big thing. And then we can kind of get into at what point older, now that we're older, can you just bail out and be like, I don't like the way you smell? There is a great line from So I Married an Axe Murderer. Do you remember that movie?
I do.
And he goes, well, you broke up with Janice. You were just dating. And he turns and he goes, she smelled like soup. And then there's a long pause and he goes, you weren't there. You don't know. And it was like his way of saying, like, she smelled.
Right.
But I was like, yeah, man. But he was probably using it as an excuse to kind of not be in a relationship. But it was like, all right, I can recognize that. I can get behind that. You know,
I feel like I don't know what I would have done today with, because I met my wife right at the birth of the internet. Like, so the internet was basically just eBay and sports scores. Like that was the internet, right? Yeah, it was a little bit like that, right? You pick up, can you please get off the internet? I need to call someone, right? And so I have no experience whatsoever with dating apps, with text flirting, with pictures, with Facebook stalking, with all that kind of stuff.
It's
and
very
like
complex.
So there's a part of me that's like, man, that takes all the mystery out of everything. And it's almost too easy to figure. Like when I went on a date with someone back in the 90s, like I showed up to dinner and they were wearing a Pittsburgh Steelers hat. And I couldn't end that shit sooner because I saw it on Facebook. You know what I'm saying? I had to sit there being like, this isn't going to work. Like, this isn't going to work, right? Eagles. They're an Eagles fan. This isn't going to work. I don't know how much I love them.
But it says a lot, you know,
right?
Like, all right.
And yeah, and like but to me, it's indicative of a lot of other stuff. Sorry, Eagles fans, but like and Steelers too. But it's like, but you see that on Facebook, you're like, oh, they're wearing an Eagle. They've got the Eagles border, fly Eagles written on their profile picture, and you're like,
swipe
nope,
or right swipe.
You can just end that right away, right? The thing too is like writing. Like texting, writing messages, that's my jam.
You would have crushed.
That's what I do for a living, right? And I've always said that, like,
bites of humor.
If you remove the picture, the video, and you remove the sound, the audio, me talking, so no picture, no sound, I am Brad Pitt. Like suddenly I become like mega desirable because writing is what the fuck I do.
It's what you do.
And,
right.
Yeah. And I feel like I could
persuasion
have
too, by the way.
Slayed. Until you get to the restaurant. They're like, oh, well, he writes well. Right. And then, it's like, I wonder if he talks less. But at least going in, I never know if it's better to go in. And again, you tell me, like I haven't been on a date in 25 years. I don't know if it's better to go in with high expectations, so you're innocent until proven guilty,
right?
Or in with low expectations, and you rise over the course of a date.
Yeah,
I don't like what. Like I don't. Do you have a preference?
Well, part of this, like thinking back, like I talk too much. And I'm very self-aware, good and bad. I think you know this about me. Like I think
we both are. I think we know what we got going on. We know what we can offer, and we know why the fuck to run. Like and why? And we don't hide it either. And that could be coming back to the fact that you and I talk a lot. Like
and I think that feeling of being self-aware in the sense that I talk too much, and I'm a nervous talker. So when there's someone else on the other end and they're not talking too much, I will like do magic tricks and I will I will dance, man, because it feels like we have been in a business where we have to think on our feet and we have to tell stories and we have to listen, but at the same time, not listen so we can get our point across. So people in advertising and marketing, their first dates, they're probably fucking great because they're used to performing and they're used to pitching.
Right.
But you're pitching yourself or you're pitching the situation. And I can see how I'm fucking annoying because I'm telling stories and I'm like, trying to get them to like, and I don't really care. So I'm stepping on what they're saying and I'm not a good listener. Now I'm just trying to like be present and be like self-deprecating and be like, yeah, I don't know. It's, but back to like, not the blind dates, but the being set up. When I became single, I found myself in situations that were very uncomfortable where there would be someone like, oh, Susan would love you. I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to go out with Susan. And that's all what's going on in my head.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, because you don't want to offend them. There's so many people you can offend the minute they all of a sudden get in that game. Like they want to bring you in. Because what if Susan is horrible? Now your person that you work with, Jill, is like, now she's offended because you don't like Susan.
Right.
And like, it's kind of fucked from the beginning. And then you kind of want to say like, well, what's Susan like? Well, she's really great. And she's this and she's that. And you guys would really hit it off because she's in the fitness and she fights people too. And you're like, all right, like there's common things. And then like, of course you want to get to what you said, like, what does she look like? Where I've seen it being a problem is when you're kind of like hesitant. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go down that path because I think it's just organic. I'm going to obviously just run into someone and be like, oh, you're cool. Right. That never happens. So
it happened to me.
Yeah. But what was interesting was like a couple scenarios where they're like, well, she'll come to the next happy hour. And there's a work people. I'm like, oh God. And then, like, well, John's going to be there. And everyone's just standing around staring at you. And you're like, all right, well, I'll talk and let's talk. You know what I mean? It's like so right. Weird. It's such an unnatural way of dealing with it. And then you have to either do the number exchange or not the number exchange. And it's just, everything just ends in disappointment.
First of all, when you say like, who'd really like you, Susan, I feel like, and we've covered this before. I know I've talked about my lack of self-esteem, especially physically, but there are times where like, if someone said to me, who'd really like you, Mary, I would think to myself, like, what the fuck is wrong with Mary?
Yeah.
Like that, like that's almost a red flag. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, because there's times I still look at my wife. Like I'll come out of the shower, I've got a towel on. Yeah. And she'll be like, oh, look at you. And I'm like, really? I'm like, what? I'm like this? Like I'll just stand in front of the mirror and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with my wife? Like, how could this be like, Right. And I look at her and she's beautiful. I find her beautiful. And then I look at me and I'm just
like, you definitely outkicked your coverage on your wife, by the way. I'll just say that.
But what's funny is that, and this going back to the number, she is actually literally the first phone number I ever asked for in my life. I never hit on people at bars. Never. I never walk up to the woman, ask them out, sat down. Hey, can I buy you a drink? Can I buy you a drink? Never came out of my mouth as a come on, right? I've bought people drinks millions of times, but I've never used it as hitting on someone. And I'm pretty sure if I really wanted to psychoanalyze myself, that it was like, fear of rejection.
No, of course.
Not having the confidence, because I would see people at a bar and I'd say, I'd like to get to know her, but I wouldn't do anything.
You became a 15-year-old nerd again. Yeah. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's who we are.
And what's funny though, is that, and this, so I met my wife and, we ran into each other. I gave a guest lecture at
physically or just like, okay.
Well, I almost
just ran into chipped her tooth.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those like bonk, but so I was one of her professors was someone I worked with in advertising, and the person I worked with asked if I can come back and give a guest lecture and then help grade their finals. So that's where I met her. She was a senior in that class. I was a couple of years out of college, and when we, the morning that we first got together, we didn't have each other's phone numbers, and there was no text. There was no just boop. You hit a little thing, and all of a sudden
you're not like banging phones together.
Right now, all of a sudden you're linked on every social media platform. Like there was nothing. So like I was we were late as hell. She had a final exam. I had to get to like I think a radio session record. So like we're scrambling because like there's and there's no cell phones. So it's not like we're scrambling. And I grab a piece of paper and I write down really quick. And this has become like relationship lore. Like this is, and it's a big regret of mine because because of it comes up all the time.
Right.
25 years later. So I write down a piece of paper. I scribble. My handwriting is already terrible, but I scribble a phone number because I'm in a rush. And I hand it to her and I go, this might be my number. And I give it to her. But like I said it like as like because it was so irregular.
Right.
Like it was my number. My intention was
Good
to give
luck
her
with
my
this.
number. And it was just stupid choice of word.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Instead of like, hopefully you can read this. If I had just said that, everything would have been fine. Or
read
really
it back
messy.
to me real quick if you can.
Yeah, read it back to me real quick. Right.
It wasn't that
instead, like a fucking moron.
Right.
I just chose the words, this might be my number. Basically saying like, this might be a house. This might be a chicken. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
this is 7 numbers.
Right. If I pulled something out of the oven without flour, this might be cookies. Do you know what I'm saying? Right. But that
might be my name.
Right. What she heard was, this might be my number.
Of course. Like that's what she heard. Inflection is different. Yes. It's like,
and we still debate the inflection. And what's cool is that I do have the 25 years of history where she now knows I'm not that guy. She's like, you couldn't even be that guy if I told you to be that guy. Right. Like she knows I'm not this might be my number.
This might be my
number. Of course she never calls. Like 3 days go by and nothing. Yeah. And I'm just like, fuck, I thought we had a good time. Like there was real chemistry, like everything. Like there was like I
smelled good.
I wasn't looking for a long-term relationship. Right. It's just, I fell into one.
Got a strand of her hair.
She never called. So I went to actually, I didn't even go. So I had a friend another coworker, go to the teacher and ask the teacher for her phone number and lied about, and she was interested in a possible internship. Can I please get her phone number? Mm-hmm. So the teacher, because if I went to the teacher and asked for her phone number, she'd be like, fuck off, predator.
Yeah.
Like,
you're creepy.
Yeah. Like, no, I'm not giving you her number.
Predator.
Right? Predator. That's probably what she would have said, even though I was the opposite of a predator, but that's just whatever. But
just want to date.
Yeah. So I actually had a coworker go to the teacher, get the number, and I called her and was just a little bit like, you didn't call me.
Is that your opener?
She was like, what?
That was your opener?
I don't know. I just said, hey, it's John Helfman.
Did you have to say John Helfman?
Yeah, because there was no caller ID. There's no.
Did you have to then keep like chipping away at that guy?
Here's the story. Now I'm thinking about it.
And she's like, Helfman.
No. So I called and she wasn't home, but her roommate answered. Oh. I was like, can you tell her John Helfman called? Here's my phone number, just to make sure, right? Because again, in my mind, I didn't know that I gave her creepy vibes when I handed her my phone. I didn't know that yet. I didn't probably know that until like months later.
Right.
But I was basically like, it's John Helfman. Here's my phone number. Have her call me back. Right. And then I was just like, and then I think later that night she called, because I remember I still saw the caller ID wasn't her. So I'm like, who the fuck is, remember caller ID?
Yeah. Caller ID.
Box. That little box. And like,
she hit you up on your beeper and then you're like, yeah. All right.
And it's like, no matter who, like you live in a house and 6 people live in that house, but whoever the phone is linked up to, it's that number. Right. So I didn't recognize who it was, but I'm like, hey, I'm like, hello. She's like, is John there? Because again, you can't even assume, right? Remember having to ask.
Oh yeah.
Having to ask for someone.
Helfman residence.
Right. And I didn't have the maturity to answer. Hello, this is John.
Real quick. At what age were you allowed to answer the phone in your house? I remember there was a big thing, a rite of passage. Like you can now answer the phone.
I don't remember, but I certainly didn't say Helfman residence.
Oh, really?
And it was weird too. And like, this is why I'm glad, because there was a little bit of time where people, like when I was an adult and my friends had kids, and my kids got to 7, 8, or 9, we were in the transition where people were going from landlines to cell phones. So everyone just had their own phone, right?
Got it.
But there was a time where I had friends who had 9, 10-year-old kids, and I would still have to call them at home. So I used to dread when the kid answered the phone. Dread, because I don't want to make fucking small talk with a kid.
You might not know if it's the boy or the girl, right? Because they have the same voice.
I didn't know how to talk to kids.
Right.
It's great when people without kids try talking to kids. They have no idea how to talk to kids, right?
That's me.
And so
I talk to everyone like they're 25. I talk to all kids like they're 25. And it's funny when a 7-year-old talks about what they're complaining about. Like, yeah, how's that working out for you? You know, like when you just talk to them like literally like they're an adult. Around other adults, it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, that's everyone, right? So
they don't have much in common. I don't have zero in common with a 7-year-old. I kind of know their life, but it's so far removed that you're like, I don't know. I don't give a shit about your day. I kind of do, but your problems are not my problems, man.
Because there's no problem that there's nothing that happens during their day that you're even going to find interesting. Would you color a duck?
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
anyway.
I don't even know where the hell. Oh, so like I would call and they'd answer like, hello? And I'd be like, and like immediately I'd just go, hi, is your dad there? Yeah. Who is this, please? And I'm like, just tell him it's John. Oh, hey. Hold on. And I just be like, get your fucking kid, like, Dad, the phone. John's on the phone. So sometimes they'd answer. And I would just hang up. I'm like, I don't know. I don't even want to deal with the 10 seconds.
I love the Italian intercom, man. Anytime you had that, and then they like throw the phone down, and then all you hear is they're running away. Like in the phone's just like in the kitchen. I used to love that. I wish we would bring that back.
I had a friend, his name was Toddy Hung. He was Vietnamese. There must have been 13 people who lived in this house, at least. Like 13 people. Right. It was, I don't even think it was generational. I think he had like 7 or 8 brothers. Mm-hmm. We never went in the house. Like he was a good friend. We played lots of sports together. Like, we taught, I still remember his phone number, 549-7978. I still remember, I could still get him on the phone. Uh-huh. I remember his phone number. This is from elementary school and high school, right? Mm-hmm. It was always an adventure calling the house because I know that a lot of the older you got in that house, the less they spoke English. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure he had a Vietnamese name and it was something like yo, like Y-O, or they just constantly said like, yo, like everybody was yo in the same way that like, yo, you get someone's attention. But because I would call the house and someone would answer, go, hello? And I would say, hey, is Toddy home? And they'd always just say, oh, hold. And I'm like, I guess that's hold, right?
Yep.
Then I'd hear, yo. Then there'd be all kinds of shit. Like it would take 30 seconds before he'd get to the phone. And I'd hear just talking and like there'd be talking in another language. There'd be I'd hear banging. And I remember just all my friends were just like, what the fuck goes on in that house? Like during the time between let me go get him and he picks up, and I would be like, and feel like I'm sitting there listening, like, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden, like another phone would pick up, he'd be like, hey, what's up? What do you want to do? Like all of a sudden, it would just like get to normal him. But it was always and like there was always an hour where you couldn't call after. Like if you called, like there was some kids had really strict parents.
Oh yeah.
Like if you called after 9, like, and if it's 9:15, you're like, if it's 9:15, you're like, man, I really got to tell this guy something, but I'm terrified that he's not going to answer the phone. He might be in the shower. Like, like if I get and it's always like a doctor, the father's like a doctor. Like if I get Dr. Blank.
So what's going on? Like you're like in the dark kitchen, like, okay, what's going on? Like, okay. And then you tell him that was me. I was like, okay, great. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then
like having to hide being on the phone.
Yeah.
Did you have really long phone line, or did you ever have your own phone line, or was it always a house line?
No, God, my own phone. Like, what do you think? We're rich? No, we had one phone line. We had probably 4 phones throughout the house, and the one in the kitchen with the cord
that's phone like with
80 feet long. And my mom was always like, "You're gonna stretch it out," like because you're just trying to get some privacy. You're literally just trying to take it around the corner. Yeah. And just try to get some privacy.
And then you'd be talking to a girl and like you're twirling the thing. Yeah. Like twirling the cord. I used to love being on the phone if it was randomly with a girl, and then you just listen to each other breathe, and you're just like talking to each other, and all of a sudden my mom would get on the phone like, John, dinner's ready. And all right, well, I gotta go. So my friends do a great imitation of my dad, right? Because and it's gonna sound like my dad was mean. He wasn't. It was my fault. I didn't listen, right? But
it's half my life.
But so he would come, so I'd be talking, right? And like sometimes we do like the party line, or somehow we figure out how to rig 3 different people on the phone, right? So I'd be doing my thing, and he'd come on. And he's like, John, get off the phone. He'd hang up, right? I go, oh, and he's like, you got to go. I'm like, a couple more minutes, right?
Yeah.
So like, start talking. Then he'd come on and go, John, I need the phone. And I'm like, all right, let's just finish the story, and then I'll hang up, and then we'll go. So the story would go on for another 2 or 3 minutes. Then all of a sudden, he'd come on and go, John, get off the fucking phone. And he'd hang up. And I go, all right. I gotta
okay. Go. Yeah, I think he means business now.
And like it became like all my friends used to always say that. And then it became anything. Right. Like, John, stop eating that fucking turnip. Like it was like, no matter, like, anytime that
I love that your dad's just dropping F-bombs like that.
And again, it sounds great. Like it's not something. No. I was in high school, right? And
you just kept pushing him right up to that edge.
My fault. My dad was not mean or really that strict. I think he did a great job, but that was get off. Right. And I still tell my kids too. Like, this is where parenting is just one big hypocrisy after another, right? But like, I would tell my kids, like, I would say, hey, can you please stop that?
Yeah.
Then 2 minutes later, they would do something. I'd say, can you guys please stop that? Right. Then I'd watch. I'm like, I fucking dare them to do it again. Yeah. So like, now I'm just like, I'm in my mind
seeing where this is going to go. Right.
As crazy as it sounds, I want them to do it again.
Like, right? Now I got something to do. All right. Yeah.
Yes. I know it sounds insane, but so I'll just be watching. Like, what? Like, I'll be like looking over my phone, watching. Right. As soon as they'll start to, I say, guys, if I have to say it a third time, I said it once, I said it twice. This third time is going to be aggressive, and you're not going to like hearing it. And there might even be a punishment with it because I said it once, I said it twice. And the way I said it the first and second time didn't work.
Right.
They weren't, you obviously have proven to me that you need like fire and wrath. That's how I'll get you to stop. So do you want that? Do you want me to do it this next time? Because it's not going to be my fault for being mean. It's your fault because that's what you guys need. Meanwhile, the whole time they're just like looking at me wide-eyed. Like, and I'm like, you don't want the third, right? And that will always end it. Always. And
I hope.
Yeah, but it's funny that I have to do it. But like then, 4 hours later, they'll be doing something like knock that off. Then number 2, I'm like, knock it off. Remember, and immediately they're just like, because I'm like, didn't we just went through this 4 hours ago? We just went through the first warning, second warning, third is a bitch, right? Like,
yeah, I don't have that because I don't have kids, but I've been around my nieces and nephews, and I always just parented the way I was parented. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, we all do. That's what we know. There's no manual. You don't learn it in school.
Yeah. So I would give the look. I never would say anything. Like if a kid was just fucking around doing something, like jumping up and down on a couch or doing something, and I needed to quote unquote parent because their parents weren't around or whatever, I would give the look. And again, kids might not, unless they're used to the look, because my mom would just give the look. You could be at the grocery store, you could be anywhere, and you would get the look. That was her saying your first thing. Fucking knock that off. It was just a look. I would get the look. And then the second was the warning. And the third was swift justice. That didn't even have to be explained. It was just now you're going to get your arm jacked up like this, and you're going to be walked into a room. You're going to be timed out, and a door is going to be slammed. And then if their parent was to walk in the room, they're like, well, where's blank nephew? And I'm like, he's in his room, probably crying.
I did your job for you.
I decided to parent, and you can go clean up, or you can make me the bad guy. I have no dog in that fight, but he's a jerk. So fix it.
I get annoyed too when I see, I wouldn't call it bad parenting. No, I'll label it. Fuck it. Like bad parenting, or like just undisciplined, or like,
or just letting like chaos happen around them and not trying to like at least have a standard, not a rule, but a standard of what's going on.
I got a haircut the other day, and like the way that the place is situated is like you walk in to a small little area where like you have to, it's one of those co-op places where there's like 15 different little stylist shops inside there, and they all kind of rent their own chair. And so you walk into this little lobby area with 2 chairs and like a buzzer. So like you can call your person's thing. It's usually, the door's usually open anyway, right? But nonetheless, I'm painting a picture of, you walk in, small little area with 2 chairs, another door that leads to hallways of little shops, right? So I walk in the first door, open it up, and I see there's a woman kind of on her phone, just sitting on a chair. I walk in the first door. I take 1 step, and I'm about to step down, and I look down, and there was like a 4-year-old,
like a kid,
wearing a blue shirt, and it's like a blue floor. So like I didn't see them. Literally lying down on the ground, looking up, and I don't even know what the fuck they were doing, right? I literally almost stepped on this kid's chest with the full force of my weight. And I kind of glanced over at the parent, like as I avoided the kid. She's on her phone, right?
You gave her the look. Like, you're gonna do anything?
And she didn't even see the look, right? But then I went in and like
impervious to the look.
Spun me the fuck out. Like when I was sitting down with the stylist, I'm just like, what is going on out there? Like my kid, like forget the fact that you were in a walkway, right? Because that's obvious, right? The danger is obvious. Parent fail number 1, the danger of lying down right when someone walks into a door, right? So that's the obvious one. But just the idea that you be allowed to go out in a public place and like roll around on the ground, right? We don't even let our kids do that in our house. Like every once in a while, and even as they're older, every once in a while they'll sit on the kitchen floor and like lie back and just be like, and I'm like, get up off the floor. Don't be on the kitchen floor. Why are you on the kitchen floor? That's ridiculous, right? To think that they could do that in public is makes no sense to me.
Well,
and it like ruins my day. Other parent fail, like, because I just say, I'm like,
is shot in the ass.
I'm like, it's one thing to raise kids different. You go to bed at 9, you go to bed at 9:30, you go to bed at 10, you get to eat this, you get to eat that. Like, look, I'm not saying that everyone needs to do it, but like, I feel like a kid lying on the ground in a lobby right when you walk in the door is universal parent fail. There's no nuance with that.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I'm with you. I was just raised in a really strict house. So half the shit that I see that goes on, even in like a grocery store, just wouldn't happen. And again, I'm with you. Like 99% of what discipline I received was my fault. Wasn't a good listener. Usually had a terrible memory. Forgot that when it was Wednesday, it was trash day. I would forget. It wasn't that I was even, and I think eventually my mom and dad knew that I just had a different brain. They didn't give me like grace in the sense that like, and then I was off the hook. It was just more like, okay, John's not doing this deliberately. John's not being like this because he's rebelling. It was more like, I don't know what day it is because it's not important to me. Like if trash day is Wednesday and I would forget to take the trash out, my mom was like, it's Wednesday. Why haven't you taken the trash out? Why do I have to remind you all the time? And it's kind of like, because I don't know what day it is,
right?
Like you just kind of want to be like, I'm not trying to prove a point. Like I just,
this isn't where I draw the line.
Yeah. Like I'm not really, and you should know me. I've been in the house for a while, appreciate it. 12, I've been here for 12 years. I still don't know what day it is. It's not important to me. What time it is, not important to me.
It's hard too, because like, I don't want to always be the parent that points out the bad. And we're really good about, I'm proud of yous. I love yous. That was a great job. We do that a lot. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like when my kids do, like I expect them to do the little things right and without praise. Right. So like if they get out, they go into their own, they pull out the cereal box, they go get their own bowl, they pour it down, they pour their thing, they pour the milk in. Can you please pass this? They say, please, here you go.
Right.
Thank you. They do that. Right. Then they eat it and everything's right. And you're just like, wow, this is a really well-mannered, disciplined child. We did good. Right. And I'll get to that in a second. Right. Mm-hmm. There's another thing that pissed me off. I know I've covered it on our podcast, but I'll fucking do it again because it pissed me off. But so they'll do everything right. They'll do this. And then like, they'll get up, they'll put the bowl, they'll wash it. They'll wash the spoon. They'll put it where it belongs in the dishwasher. They'll leave. And then they'll walk away and like their napkin is still there.
Right.
So I'll look at them like, oh, and they're like, what? I'm like, I'm like, you're just gonna leave this here? And like they just they just did 19 things in order right. Like things that like parents wish their kids do. But like, and I don't say like, good job putting the cereal in the bowl yourself. Like, good job pouring the milk. Good job saying please and thank you. Good job washing the bowl. Good. Like the only time they hear me is fucks with the napkin, you know? Yeah. And like, so there's this weird balancing act. Like, I don't want to be the parent that like only points out the bad, right? So like I sometimes have to pick your
battles.
Right. We're just because I don't want them upstairs. Like, we can't ever please that motherfucker. Like seriously,
he's
like
tough.
Like, God, like I washed the shit out of that bowl and I left a napkin.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
My little pea brain just couldn't do everything.
My brain's still soft.
And like, so I don't want to all of a sudden be like this guy who's got this immensely high bar of perfection. Right. But I will say this is what I'm getting back to. And I know I've said this before, but like, if there's one thing that pisses me off, I consider my kids good kids. I'm proud of them. I'm proud. They're very good. I think they're good people. I think they're thoughtful.
They're good kids. Right?
Yeah. So I'm proud of that. Right. And occasionally we'll be out and like, there's these two kids who will just be off in the corner, fucking things up, putting mud on their faces, like pulling at stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Like and like the parents, they just look beaten up. They're just sitting there like, oh. And then my kids will be at the table. They'll put napkins on their lap. Please, thank you. Hey, do you want me to go do this? And the kid, the other parent will turn to me and go, "You are so lucky."
Right.
And I'm like, well, why? They said, your kids are so good. And I'll just stare at them and I'm like, that ain't luck.
That's not luck, man.
That is, years, to your point, training. That is years
blacksmithing something. Just pounding.
And years of training, discipline, crying, grounded,
mistakes,
reminders of frustration, frustration.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah, you don't. It's
a lifetime of it.
Yeah,
they're not good because I'm lucky. They're not good because their DNA was just like, oh, please, thank you. Can I get that door for you? That's training. That's years and years and years of trial and error. Years and years of training. Years and years of me being frustrated, them being frustrated. Like, there's no fucking luck at all. Right. And it drives me crazy when the parents of shit kids tell me I'm lucky because my kids are good, because I know they don't put the effort in. Like, look what they're doing right now. They're ripping bark off a tree. Like, that's not good. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, go do something about that.
It's funny because my ex sister-in-law one time said something to me, and it was really good, not advice, but sort of an insight that she has 3 kids. And we were at the beach one time. It was just fucking chaos. And it was just, for me, but for them, it was like normal. It was
Tuesday.
Normal. Again, when you're a single unit, even at like your house, and it's a different noise, I'm not saying the kids should be like silent and spoke, that I'm not from that generation at all. Like, speak when spoken to. Like, I get it. Kids make noise, kids make messes, kids break shit. I get all that. I understand it. But we were talking and we were sitting on the porch, and just like, it was just a melee happening behind her. And I gave like the look, like I was like, what the fuck? Because they were now like in my area, what I mean? They were like in my area now. They're like sort of impeding on my quiet or my time. And I would have to then move.
Right.
To then get out of their space. And I was there. I don't want to sound like a child, but I was there first. And now all of a sudden I got this melee. And she looked at me and she's like, one thing I've learned with 3 kids is that I don't want to constantly be in a state of no. Because you can literally be like, no, don't do that. Why are you doing that? And just like feeling, and she's like, there's times where I just let them have a break of no, so that they can be sort of free in that zone. And I kind of got it. And I was like, but when do you put the top back on the kettle?
Right.
Because I know kids, I don't have them, but I can kind of understand them, but they'll go as far up to the edge as they can.
Yep.
And if there's no edge, they'll just keep going. They'll just literally just keep going. So if you don't have that, like, all right, now everyone settle down, like, I mean, unless you get them back to planet Earth, they'll just keep going. And it's funny because I took it to heart that not everyone can be perfect. Not they do everything perfectly. And you don't want a robot, I would imagine, as a parent, but there is a level of like that balance of like, I have control of the situation. We're at the beach. It can be a little out of control, but, and I use the but, like, there's a standard here. There's like this level of like what they can get away with and what they can't. I think they learn that as they get older.
Well,
Hopefully.
it's situational too. Like
Yeah.
we are, I don't consider myself a strict parent, but I do consider myself like, all the do's and don'ts of what a kid should and shouldn't do, I try and instill in them. Right. But like, if they run amok here when we're home and I hear them in the basement going crazy and like things fall over, I will let them go because it can't all be no. They have to wrestle. Right. They have to learn how to do that kind of stuff. They have to be themselves. Right. But like, if you're in the room, that might be a good time to choose no. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if we're out, and what's always weird is I always say, inside voice, inside voice, inside voice. Like my kids are older now, so the discipline is much. It's bigger than just the do's and don'ts.
Yeah,
of being human, right. It's like
the basics have all been taken care of.
Yeah, they've all been taken care of. But what was funny is for a while, when they were 6 and 5, 7 and 6, I would say indoor voice, indoor voice, indoor voice, indoor voice. Then we go outside and they'd start screaming, and I didn't know what to say then. Right. Because I had sort of given them permission.
You set a standard of the inside, but the outside.
I can't say outside voice, a little louder than inside voice, but not obnoxious. Your outside voice is a normal voice. Your inside voice is quiet. Like I couldn't, right? So they go outside, be like, well, I guess I fucked that one up. Right. But like, and like, even still, like if they're outside and I hear neighbors and they're carrying on, like I would just teach them not to carry on. Like, don't be a distraction. Just go through life having fun and doing your thing, but just be conscious that there's other people. Yeah. Who, so if you want to run outside and scream, just know that your screaming is being heard by lots of people. Yeah. And they might not want to hear you scream.
And that's the self-awareness that it's, I've seen that where kids just like fucking lose their minds outside. And you're like, all right, well, I guess that's, that's fine. Just as long as it's not in the mall, it's not at the restaurant. Like that's sort of mine, is that when you're at a restaurant and you just see and hear, and just like it can ruin an evening at times, someone else's thing.
Oh yeah.
But I don't want to sound like a douchebag, but I mean, it's once in a while, kids are great, but they're also like, oh my God. Like when you don't have them, you don't know. Right. Like you don't know anything. Well, you did have a point in your life where you didn't have kids, but like you don't know because you've raised them since day one. Or even pre-day one, you know what I mean? So you don't know the difference as of their birth, the difference of what it's not like to have kids. And then I always try to I always come to the table with even at my age, I don't know what it's like to wake up and have that responsibility or that thing or that, like once in a while, I love when parents, we need to check time. I love when parents are honest though. When a parent, there's nothing better than a transparent parent. Transparence. Maybe that's a thing where they're just like, fuck, you're just like letting out, like, I just want to eat my breakfast, or I just want to take a poop. Like, I really just want to go to the bathroom with the door closed and no one wants to come in here. Like, I remember hearing that and being like, that's a thing? Like, oh yeah, they want to be where I am. I'm like, you can't go poop. And they're like, no, they want to be in the room. And I was like, wait.
It's hard stuff, man. I'm with you though. I'm always weirded out by people who are like, this is wonderful.
Yeah. Or they're like, being a parent is so great. It's everything I ever thought it was going to be. And then sometimes you're just like, okay.
I always tell when people are expecting, I always say, this is the only advice I have for you, because you're going to hear advice from everybody. The only advice I have for you right now is that it will eventually get better. So don't kill yourself. And I'm like, and I'll tell them, like, you're going to cry. The first couple months are going to be brutal. I said, but at some point, like, you're going to want to have a breakdown. I said, at some point you will come out of this haze. You okay?
My headset just died.
Oh, can you hear me? I guess so. Right. But all right, we should wrap up anyway. But I will leave you with
technical difficulties.
I'll leave you with this one thought. When we first had a kid a couple weeks ago,
I'm trying to figure this out real quick. I don't even know how they're going to do this, but fuck it. I can't hear you at all. My headset just died.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I will wrap up right
That's
now.
a wrap.
You can.
I think I read your lips on that one.
That
right.
I'm going
There's
to
always
wrap up.
technical difficulties. So I apologize.
Okay. We will get to this next time.
Right.
We will do spaghetti next time.
I'm just reading your lips right now.
Yeah.
So, all right, buddy. Have fun
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
See you.